Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire #After Dark Champions League show. That's right, folks. We're back. I was on vacation in week 2, and Ryan didn't want to make any PBR live Twitter stream shows. So we missed week 2, but we are now ready for week 3 of Champions League action. We are here to break down draft on Tuesday, October 22nd, DraftKings Classic slate featuring 7 matches and 14 teams to go through, Ryan. Although I don't think we're going to have to go through all 14 teams, because if you look at the RotoWire cheat sheet, rotowire.com /soccer trial. So hopefully Jordan listens to me get that right. You'll see that it's a slate with 7 fairly strong favorites overall. Arsenal are big favorites against Shakhtar. Girona are big favorites against Slovan Bratislava. We have Lisbon as away favorites against Sturm Graz. Paris favored against PSV. Madrid against Borussia Dortmund are favored. Ryan, all these teams are 65% to win or more with 2.25 implied goal totals or better. And then you also have Aston Villa, who are favored against Bologna. Aston Villa haven't been so great for a DFS, but still technically a good spot, maybe not as goal heavy in this biggest slate. And then Juventus are slight favorites against Stuttgart at home. I mean, Ryan, this is an overwhelming slate to study. I studied a lot of the favorites. I think there's going to be a clear way that DraftKings wants us to approach the slate where you spend up big at forwards. There's some midfield value plays in the mid-range you can play. I want to spend up twice at defender. But what did you notice when you first opened the slate?
Yeah, pretty similar to you. DraftKings not giving us multi-position eligibility makes this one interesting, and also, like you said, though, kind of an obvious construction where I think we're going to be spending at forward. You spend for the 2 best defenders, and then figure it out at mid. Like there's plenty of forward options. There's a couple really good defender options, and then other good defenders too, and then just not a lot of midfielders. We'll talk about the position later, depending on who starts, but. Yeah, not a lot of options at midfield. As far as the slate, Arsenal as the biggest favorite, 2.74 total. Soft matchup, but likely without Saka, it's a weird spot where you almost don't necessarily need to play any Arsenal guys. If we assume Declan will take almost a monopoly, probably with this lineup. He's 7,900, so talk about him at midfield, but I don't think you have to play Arsenal guys, although the forwards are kind of cheap. We have Madrid on this slate. There's no marquee matchups. I guess Madrid-Dortmund is sort of the marquee matchup, but I don't think you really need to go to Real for fantasy. You can. It's kind of why I like this slate, though. Some of the other options I prefer to the more big name teams, like Girona against Bratislava, I think is a pretty good spot. Some decent options on Girona. Dembele, we'll talk about it forward. It's funny, Dembele, assuming he's taking sets, assuming Kang's not in, that's the lineup we have, right? You'd think he's the best forward on the slate. I mean, he is probably from a floor and just everything perspective, but there's so many good forwards that I was making lineups that couldn't even fit him. So that makes it interesting as well. I don't know, Jack. I think it's pretty straightforward from a construction standpoint. Like you said, play the best defenders, find the midfielders you like, but then it's the forwards that you're going to have to get right for, to win tournaments for sure.
And by get right, it's going to be the forward who scores the brace at 40% ownership in cash that you're just going to have to hope that you landed on, such as cash games in a real kind of throwback Champions League slate like this, where it's just, I don't know, we might see some massive scores overall. Ryan, I see that Saka is a true doubt to play. Do you think that he has a shot of playing? And would you want to play Saka coming off an injury so questionable in this type of spot at 11K?
Not in cash. I don't think you would need to do it in cash. Coming off an injury, probably not going to play 90 minutes if he does start, and just pretty expensive. So I would say no, Jack. I mean, we have plenty of other options at forward. Dembele is right there, 600 cheaper, 10,400. the Madrid guys are right there. I'm not sure they're cash game options, but I'm sure people will go there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's so many good forward plays. You don't have to force Saka. I mean, he's not a bad play, but there's just equally good plays very much nearby him, like Dembele, for example. Ryan, I noticed that there is some salary relief on Girona. We'll talk about that at forward. So that's kind of nice the way that that's shaped up. So that helps things out a little bit. And then I also noticed that Lisbon, there's going to be a lot of salary relief right there. Victor Gyökeres, he's 10K and expensive, but there's a ton of like midfielders and forward eligible players who are quite cheap on Lisbon. And they're in a pretty good matchup, all things considered. Not crazy about playing away teams in Champions League, but the odds speak for themselves. And I don't think it's something that you want to double count necessarily. I mean, Ryan, let's just get into the forward position. We have to talk about a lot of options. And who do we like most at the top of the forward position? We have Kylian Mbappe at 11,400, about a 9-point floor player. He's likely to score a goal. Vinny Jr., a little bit less likely to score a goal, but still a great floor, maybe more likely to contribute and assist. But Ryan, I'm not convinced it's that good a matchup against Borussia Dortmund, who might have some revenge on their mind. This is a rematch of last year's Champions League final. It's just not going to be a cakewalk, and the other matchups just seem so much better. I think the first name in is Arnaud Danjuma, who will take set pieces for Girona at 9,000, probably, with Victor Sigankov out. I don't know, he's just a little bit cheaper, and the spot's pretty elite for Girona. What do you want to do at that second forward, Ryan? And is Danjuma that guy that you want to play as first forward in?
Yeah, he is, I think. First forward in 9K should take almost all the sets for Girona. They got a lot of injuries at the moment. You mentioned Sigankov out. The other guy who had been taking sets was Asparilla, one of their new signings. He's also out. So yeah, Danjuma's been taking everything. Looks like he's somewhat safer for minutes too. Brian Gill's also out. Portu's out. They have a couple of center forwards, so whichever one starts, the other one will probably sub on for the other one. So yeah, I think it's a really good matchup. Maybe the best matchup on the slate against Bratislava. First guy in, yeah. After that, I think Dembele probably has just the best floor of maybe even higher than Danjuma, but certainly after Danjuma. So I'd be tempted to go there in cash games. I think you can afford both if you want to. The Madrid guys, I agree. I don't see any reason to go there in cash. Will they be low owned in tournaments? I'm not sure. Vinny might be. Mbappe almost never is. Gyökeres, I agree. I think that's a good tournament play. I think he'll get lost in the shuffle. Actually, he's started to become massive chalk on these slates, but this one he won't be just because of the Madrid guys, Dembele, Danjuma, and also they're the only favorite on the road, which takes people off. So that's a good tournament play. For cash, the next guys I think the next best cash play is Chico Conceição at 6,400. Probably gonna take half the sets and just has a good floor in general. Was suspended over the weekend, but he's been in good form too. Scoring and assisting, came up with a big goal in the Champions League round last time. But you could go, I wouldn't, fault anybody. The Arsenal guys might be, the next best plays as well. It depends. Like if we didn't see Saka on the bench, I think Sterling would be fine in cash because you could project him for more minutes. But with Saka on the bench, I think, I don't know. He doesn't necessarily come in, but it would make me worried a little bit. All the Arsenal forwards are cheap though. I mean, if somebody wanted to click one, I think they're riskier. I mean, we've seen I've tried so many times with Gabriel Jesus, even Trossard too. It looks good on paper, but those guys can still bust. So I don't know. I felt better about a Juventus guy. Like if for some reason Conceição didn't start, Yildiz seemed okay splitting sets, but I don't think he would take any if Conceição started.
It feels a bit like a crime to play Raheem Sterling in cash, so your point is well taken. The game environment is just so good there. And what are his, I don't know.
90 minutes of Sterling would smash, but it's a risk. The minutes are a big risk.
Yeah. I don't know. Even the smash might be a little bit of a risk, right?
Yeah,
Just because of how he scores his points. But look, I agree. He probably scores a goal or gets like an 8-point floor at least, which is enough. And, you have that goal equity.
Here's the thing. Yeah, you're right. But how he scores his points without Saka in is different and unknown to most people, since it really has only happened one time ever, and that was this over the weekend. And Arsenal was running everything through Saka, or through Sterling, sorry. And I think it would be similar. I think it would be that way again.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those are fair points all around. Conceição stuck out to me as a good play. I have his game log up here on RotoWire because you're one click away from all the stats in the Big Five leagues and MLS and stuff. I mean, 16-point floor, early in October in his most recent start. I don't know. I was worried about minutes, Ryan, but I think if he starts, he's probably good for at least 75. I'm not sure how good Juventus are because, you do have Arsenal in a really elite spot for scoring
that's
goals.
That's the thing, right? They're not that great. So that I was thinking about that too. Do you want to waste a forward spot on one of the teams that's not a massive favorite? And maybe not. That's why I said the Arsenal guys wouldn't fault anybody if you rank the Arsenal guys over all these other guys, because they're cheap, and it's the best matchup. It's a soft matchup, the highest total by a decent margin. I think you can click the Arsenal guys. I would like I said, it's about Saka being on the bench if I would trust it in cash games or not.
I see. I think you've neglected, Ryan, that there's a 50% chance that Arsenal get a cynical red card in this one and are forced to, they're put in a bad spot necessarily. So make sure you include that in your Arsenal projections as well. Ryan, I wanted to look at this guy on Girona, Bojan Miovski. Sorry for mispronouncing his name, surely. That might be too high testosterone to play. I just saw that he was minus 160 to score on the cheat sheet. But this is a statue striker who, if he scores a goal, might get 14 points. So only 7,000, good tournament play. But yeah, I'd rather play Chico Conceição.
Yeah, and Abel Ruiz is back fit. And they're like the exact same, the stationary number 9 types. So I would be worried about the minutes there. But yeah, tournament plays. Anyway,
I think that just about nails it as far as people I'm considering at forward in cash games. I don't know, like the expensive guys are just guys who can smash and have good floors, and I think they're worth paying up for. Or you get cute with the Raheem Sterling play. It is a cute play. I don't mean that too derogatory. It's just you're probably using that extra salary to beef up other spots, Ryan. Do you have any fun? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, final thought would be Martinelli is 6,100. Wouldn't surprise me if he started. He didn't start over the weekend. Actually, why wouldn't he be starting here? See, I could see him starting for sure. 6,100, I think that's fine too. That's actually a really tough call. Do you want like 75 minutes of Martinelli or Conceição with sets? That's a tough one, right? It was 6,100. It's awfully cheap for Martinelli. We don't see Arsenal with this high of total in the Premier League.
No, I mean, Martinelli, like 2 years ago, was a 10K player. Like,
I know,
pretty elite. Well, he was taking set pieces, but he's got that level of talent in him. Ryan, one other name I had, I don't think there's any like strategic reason to spend this low at forward, and you could use this player as a flex, but I don't know, some of these sporting guys, I have Genny right here. I saw that he took some set pieces. You probably just have so much money, you play an expensive forward anyways. So I don't think the cheap forward eligibility particularly matters on this one. But were there any punts that stood out to you?
Yeah, well, it matters a little. It matters if you want to spend up at mid. So maybe you do it in tournaments. And yeah, it was this Sporting guy that you mentioned. Like any of the forwards I play, you're going to want them to score 15 points, you know? And I think it's a good spot for Sporting. They could do it. You mentioned this guy, Katamo, split sets sometimes. It'll depend on the Sporting lineup. We'll talk about midfield in a second. Sporting lineup is always important, but especially on this slate. But yeah, if he were to take sets, I could play him in some tournaments because it lets you get like a Kai Havertz, or maybe even Declan if you want. Maybe Jude. Any of these spend up tournament mids, maybe you're going to need to spend down for one of the forwards.
I think that's a good segue into the midfield position. We have Ozzy saying lock in Danjuma. Ozzy's always in the chats. Yeah, he's gonna be chalk. Yeah, midfield. We have Rice at 7,900. He looks like one of the more expensive projected plays. I don't know if I'm screwing up my positional eligibility though, Ryan, because DraftKings has been pretty dynamic. So you can fill me in on any expensive forwards I'm missing. I mean, Rice is certainly an option, but you want him to venture forward a little bit more and have those, outs from like taking shots and a little bit more freedom. Maybe a midfield with Thomas Partey and Mikel Moreno gives Rice that sort of freedom to do that. But, set pieces are going to be quite valuable in this spot. I do just sometimes get hesitant about set pieces, Ryan. Sometimes when a team is that good, like the opposition just parks the bus so much, it's not really like forcing many corners. We've seen this with Manchester City before. So I'd be curious if you had any thought about like downside set piece risk for Declan Rice. He's not a lock for 12 corners whatsoever. Jude Bellingham's a GPP play at 7,400. And then you have a lot of set piece takers, Ryan. I mean, Yuri Tielemans, you could play him at 6,400. I'm surely going to miss people as I go through. Pedro Pote, 6,100. He's someone that you can play. I think you can play PSG midfielders for floor, not necessarily set pieces, but guys like Fabian Ruiz has an 8-point floor in league and has goal outs. I mean, he's not even the best midfield plays. But yeah, why don't you tell us what you're seeing from the position?
Yeah, I think the first news you want to look for is Sporting. Pote's been out for a while. Not for a while, just recently. He's questionable. Like, we don't have him in our projected 11, but I didn't see him in other projected 11s either. But from what I could gather, he might be starting. It seems like he's healthy, but I think he would be the first midfielder in for me at least. Some worry that he's been out. Some worry about minutes, but I think the position's kind of weak overall. I think the best is probably Declan, but he does have a wide range of outcomes, like you said. Plenty of outcomes where he's going to bust here. If Arsenal score early, like you mentioned, there's plenty of scenarios where they don't get many corners. But I also think he could smash. You mentioned, I think a midfield with Marino and Partey is good for him. And I think this matchup is super soft. So Declan could be ripping shots. He'll probably show up in the box a little bit. So yeah, I think Rice is good in all formats, but again, not going to surprise me if he scores like 6 or 7 points either. And 7,900 is expensive, but I do think he has a ceiling. So that's a tough one. Modric, yeah, I don't know. I never like to click him. Is there any reason we should be? Oh, we don't even see him in the projected 11.
Oh, I didn't notice that. I had him on my list of players. Modric, 6,300.
So who's taking sets in this lineup for Madrid? Who takes sets in this Madrid lineup?
That is a very important question. I just penciled in Modric, and I didn't even think
because without Rodrigo either,
and Goulet isn't for it. I mean, Fede Valverde might take some set pieces, Ryan. That wouldn't be the most outrageous outcome. Yeah, I mean, that's just not part of Vinny's game.
What's up? Rodrigo's not playing either?
We'll see the lineup. The nice thing is, Real Madrid's lineup will be up at 3 a.m. Eastern time, so we'll have plenty of time to react and figure out who will take set pieces.
Yeah, you might want Madrid sets. I mean, I would want them, but I wouldn't want them if they're Luka Modric. I mean, he's fine, but I just don't.
This is getting a little tangential, but is there a chance that Mbappe sometimes takes corners for France? It wouldn't be the most insane thing.
No, we were wondering chance. Small chance. We were wondering that before. Madrid's thrown this lineup out there like this once before. I need to check who took sets, but maybe they haven't. I don't know. I see Rodrigo. I see other places with Rodrigo starting too. So if he does, I guess he'd be in the conversation at forward. I mean, the Monopoly sets for Madrid. What is Rodrigo? He's 8,700. I mean, that seems like he's in the pool. Were he to start?
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to pull up Modric because if he starts, right, then that's going to be some kind of decision.
Does he go 90? Oh yeah, I suppose he does. He does when he starts.
And he was also rested over the weekend, so he started October 5th at home, and then he rested after international break, only had a sub appearance at 27 minutes, looks like against Celta Vigo.
Actually,
I think there's a good chance Modric starts.
Man, I sort of got to take back a little of what I said. You got to consider him just based on these game logs. If he's going to play, I'm used to him going 64 minutes, but if he's going to go 89, 86, 90, 90 in his last 4 starts, that's pretty notable to me. So yeah, I think he's in the cash pool for sure.
I mean, I'm playing him in all these UEFA international slates as well. He still creates chances for his teammates from open play. I don't think he's a complete zero. You worry about him in more difficult matchups, and maybe it's not the easiest matchup, but I think the DFS trends page on RotoWire said that he's, about a 10-point floor.
Yeah.
Feels like a fine play in that price range.
Yeah.
I mean, who else are we looking at? Ryan, we had a pre-show discussion in the cheap range. I was wondering if Douglas Luiz might start for Juventus. He started over the weekend and is only 3,200, and he took set pieces. So that feels like someone who is the proverbial straw that stirs the drink. Is there any cheap midfielders that look good to you?
Yeah, I just didn't. Douglas Luiz would be fine. I just didn't think he was going to start. I mean, he might, but I thought it was going to be Fajoli, Locatelli, and do we have Douglas Luiz in our 11? Hold on a second. Oh no, this Thuram. Okay. Anyways, yeah, 3,200. I mean, yeah, that would be fine. Similar play on the opposite side of that game for 3,400 is Angelo Stiller, who will split sets. Sometimes even take, like, as long as Reader's not in there, and I don't think Reader's going to be in there. I mean, Stiller is a defensive midfielder through and through, but he's got Germany call-ups recently. He's pretty good. I don't know. Like, if you want a guy who's going to take sets, I know like his game log doesn't look great, but he has some decent game logs, like the ones where he takes sets. He'll probably split with the guy who I think is in play for tournaments is this Enzo Milo for 7,200. Every time I watched him play, he's had a good game. I watched him play in some international tournament for France too recently. That one that Elise was playing in, he was good in that tournament too.
The Olympics?
Yeah.
That one tournament, the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such is the state of soccer in the Olympics.
But no, he's pretty good. Every time I see him, he's impressed me, and he's put up some big scores on DraftKings recently. Scored in the Champions League last time out. So yeah, I'm interested in him for tournaments. Probably, another one of the best tournament plays I think is Donny van de Beek for 5,100. Back in the fold. After a tough stint at United, but healthy again. He's been pretty good for Girona and just cheap. They're down to the bare bones, so they're gonna need him like in an attacking role, and I'm not too concerned about the minutes for 5,100. I think he's in play for tournaments. And I think Nuno Santos is going to start for Sporting.
Shot at set pieces there.
He would take set pieces, like almost certainly split. I mean, he's left-footed. He always takes set pieces when he's in. Not like a whole lot of upside, not goal upside at least, but he got an assist over the weekend. He played 90 over the weekend. I mean, he's a guy who can show up with 10 crosses like pretty easily. So I don't mind him. I think that was it. Is Sporting, the other Sporting guys, just depends on the lineup. If Pote is not in, somebody else will end up on the other wing, and they're all cheap, and they all have a chance to take sets. Kenda takes sets. Sometimes he plays forward. Yeah. So I think a Sporting guy's fine. It's a good matchup, and they're all cheap. For cash, though, I'd want it to be Pote or Santos.
For sure. I mean, I think you basically crushed all of the names that I put on my list at that point. As for Stiller being a defensive midfielder who needs set pieces to get there, I have mixed feelings about this. Like, Shu, he's told me that Juventus is where floors go to die. It's not like going to be it might not be a very good spot for floor points for Stuttgart overall. So that might be a thing to look at. You can use the RotoWire tools to see, how many fantasy points do Juventus allow. But even so, 8 points from a $3,200 player based on how this slate sets up with the amount of goals. There's going to be a couple guys who score 30 or more that you must have to win tournaments. Probably some guys scoring 20 or more, defenders scoring above 15. That just might be what it takes. It won't matter that much. You just need the guy who scores 8 instead of 4 floor points.
Yeah, and normally I agree with Shu. Like always, have sort of played like that, but I don't know if this is quite the same Juventus. I look at the last match week, and they were in the thriller with Leipzig. 3-2 that went off. Sesko dropped a 30-piece. Vlahovic had a brace. The game was just back and forth, up and down. There might have been a red card in the second half. Can't remember, but anyways, yeah, I agree, but also if there's an early goal, then throw all that out the window. So I think I'm not on a 7-game slate. I'm not trying to going out of my way to play Stuttgart guys, though. I agree with you, especially not Angelo Stiller for 3,400. But if he's the only guy down there that has an 8-point floor, or you think you can maybe get that out of him, it might work.
Yeah, you sort of have to consider it. I'm not running out of the way to play underdogs, and I feel like I have more of a stomach for it than most. There's just really, you can play one underdog if it just makes everything work. And I feel like Stiller, he has the potential to check off.
Part of it is
boxes.
the position. It might be weak. Might not be, but for a 7-game slate, sometimes you can get away with it more so than on other slates.
I mean, what does it take? It takes Jude Bellingham not going nuclear, Declan Rice scoring only 10 points. Then it's just a bunch of set piece takers. So if none of the Lisbon guys get there, well, even one of them can. You're allowed to play one of these other midfielders,
right?
But yeah, it just might not be that strong. I kind of agree.
It's also a slate where if you get the rest of the combination right, it just sometimes doesn't matter if your 3,400 guy has 6 points.
Yeah. Is Kai Havertz midfield eligible only on this one?
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Whenever I max enter, that's something I like to do. I like to click on ugly Kai Havertz, no floor. Well, he's had a better floor recently, actually. He's tough to play as a midfielder, and usually other names get there. So,
yep.
I don't know if people have caught on, though, but he's usually not too owned either.
Hat trick upside, though. I mean, in a matchup like this, I would have more interest, if Jesus didn't start, but shouldn't really. But I just, slightly more interest if Jesus doesn't start.
I hear you. I won't make you spill the beans on all of your Gigamind strategies either. Looking at defender Ryan, I confidently told you before show there's just 2 obvious plays and you got to play them. And you agreed. And let's hope that we're talking about the same defenders. The first defender that I really wanted to play, and I highlight him every single time I talk about Champions League, is Hakimi on PSG. Just monster floor lately. I think I have him down for. I think he's been having 12-point floor in Liga Un these days. Like, he doesn't take set pieces, but he's just everywhere, creating chances, crossing, getting tackles won. He's a total machine of a player. And I think he delivered in week 1 as well. So Hakimi feels like a really good play in this spot. The other defender I like is Miguel Gutierrez on Girona. He's only 5,100. He's got a great floor in La Liga, I think around like 9 points. The matchup's just so good. 5,100 feels kind of cheap for a wide player who crosses a bit, maybe a 10% chance at set pieces too, Ryan. Please tell me those were the names that you had in mind.
On mute. Okay. Hakimi was, Jack. Gutierrez he's in the mix, but I wasn't sure that I didn't have him as the number 2 defender, I guess. Let's put it that way. But it's close. I had Andrea Cambiaso only because I'm figuring set pieces. He's been, Juventus aren't going to have Coop Miners, and I'm assuming no Luiz. This is a lineup thing, so you check the lineup, make sure Douglas Luiz isn't in there. But Cambiaso might even start more attacking. But set pieces at home, I think I would take that. But I can't, if you want to play Gutierrez over him, I think that's fine too. Probably has a higher floor from open play. But it's a strong defender slate. I was tempted to play 3 defenders even, but you wonder if you're losing upside there because then you're going to have to sacrifice a forward. But there are other good defenders. Like, I think Nuno Mendes is a pretty good play. I think, the Girona guys, and then for tournaments, I know I don't see him in an R11, but I thought Zinchenko was going to start. Just makes sense for him to start against Shakhtar. I also think you could see him take some sets without Saka and Odegaard there. He's the next left footer up. And we see these random spots where Zinchenko just controls the game and smashes. And he could do that, without Odegaard there, and just going to be like no ownership on him. So yeah, Hakimi's the best, and then I think it's up for debate a little bit.
That makes sense. Ryan, someone like Ricardo Calafiori has been pretty impressive as a left back for Arsenal lately. If he gets the nod, someone who I was surprised that the machine asked me to play in a showdown last weekend. And I did, but I think I lost for other reasons. Calafiori, though, still produced a decent floor in that spot. From when I've watched Arsenal, he's in the box. I mean, do you think he's in the mix? It's a strong pool. You don't want to sacrifice that, but I think he's kind of like an all-around player. He's not a fake fullback.
No. No, everything you said is right. Like, really like him. He's not a fake fullback, great player. But no, because of everything I said about Zinchenko. I just, like, if Zinchenko wasn't in the team, then sure. I just don't see how Zinchenko doesn't play against Ukrainian opposition, and especially because he hasn't been starting. And so even if Calafiori starts, I can't trust it. But yeah, it's fine for tournaments, but Zinchenko's on the bench. He's playing against a Ukraine team.
That makes sense. So you change the minutes projection there, and then Calafiori is not going to look nearly as good. Ryan, I agree. Nuno Mendes is a good play. He's just someone who's been cooking a good floor for PSG as well. A lot of good floors for PSG. They seem to be a pretty floor-friendly team overall. And I don't mind the idea of going with 3 defenders if it makes it work. I think if you had Mendes as the 3rd defender, I mean, I guess you like compare it to a cheap like Kenda or something like that. Like, would you rather play a third defender or play Kenda on or Genny on Lisbon? I don't know. Those are close calls. You might get like a steady in cash games. You might get like a steadier drip of like 9 points from the PSG fullbacks.
Yeah, I think I'd rather play a defender. Yeah, then in that spot than those guys. I agree. Would you rather play a defender than Chico Conceição? Probably not. That's where it gets different. But maybe, like, Nuno Mendes is a pretty good play. And if we just take the 3 guys we said, Hakimi, Cambiaso and Gutierrez, those are pretty good plays too. So I think it's okay. Like, you could get double digits from all those guys. Mendes scored last time out. He's been good. He's just got a ton of ways to get there. So,
Just
yeah,
one of
good
those
defenders
players
in
that
play.
when you watch Nuno Mendes, you can just tell he's better than most players. Like someone who has an aura of elite talent around him, which I find drawn to a lot. Ryan Ozzy's asking if we can play Maxi Mittelstadt, the German legend from Euros, at 4,900. Ozzy, I'm inclined not to, just because I don't want to force in, there's other good defenders to play, and I don't want to force in underdogs against defensive opposition. Ryan, your thoughts, though?
Yeah, he's been crushing, but I agree with you, Jack. His game log looks really good.
That's Bundesliga, though. I've been
Yeah,
scammed by
and,
by extrapolating Bundesliga game logs.
I just like these other guys. There's a lot of guys in that price range. Nuno Mendes, all of them, Cambiaso and Gutierrez, all right there. I don't like Mittelstadt more than those guys, but I've been wrong on him in the past. Mittelstadt, like, I'm usually, I don't know. People are higher on him than me, and they've been right recently.
Don't even get me started on getting burned by Mittelstadt. Are there any cheap defenders worth playing, Ryan? I didn't even look because I just saw like 5 defenders who I could play that are 4,500 or more, and I decided the opportunity cost would be too high going for a stupid center back goal. But did you see anything?
I didn't even look. You're not gonna catch me playing any center backs on this slate, I don't think. No.
Yeah, I just don't think there's anyone cheap. I mean, maybe someone comes out when starting lineups roll out who is a fullback who's cheap, who you can play, but I just don't think that's the best construction based on how salary's working out.
I agree. Sorry, I'm just checking. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna start, but maybe Juan Miranda for 2,900. I think takes set pieces when he plays. He plays left back. So I mean, you look at his last match in the league. 10 floor and 3 corners. He's actually a pretty good player. Used to be on Barcelona way back in the day, and we know him from Real Betis. But 2,900. It's not a great matchup, but also Villa shouldn't be too scared to play against Aston Villa. Could do worse for 2,900 if Miranda starts.
I mean, we were talking about playing Angelo Stiller for 3,400. That doesn't sound. You could just play him in a utility spot. That doesn't sound much worse whatsoever. It depends on how the lineup rolls. All right, good stuff. So we'll keep our eyes out for that. Ryan, the goalkeeper page doesn't even fit on one page in my pane right here, so maybe I'll go up. Look, it's a massive Champions League slate. I can promise you I'm willing to pay down and play the most disgusting goalkeeper it takes to make the lineup work. Sherpin on Sturmgat's cheapest home keeper, 3,900. I don't even think that matters that much, to be completely honest. So if I had to play Riznik, I'd play him. If I had to play Takak, I'd play him. In cash, the correlation doesn't even really matter because it's not like any of these guys are going to win. You just need them to face saves. So I don't care about anything like that. So how do you see a goalkeeper strategy shaping up for this one, Ryan? Are you kind of going to try to mine that, low 4,000s range and just assume that one of those guys goes off on a 7-game slate? Or do you see some appeal for, getting up to an expensive goalkeeping option?
I don't know about appeal. I'm just going to worry about goalkeeper last. Yeah, I'm with you for the most part. Just mine these cheap guys usually. If I need the money, if not, then I'll play whoever I can afford, Jack. But I am going to try to get a win out of my keeper. So I agree. Any of these guys are fine, especially for cash. But for tournaments, I probably won't be playing the guys against Girona and Arsenal. But above that, you wouldn't be too surprised if any of these other teams won. I just hope Kobel's not optimal for like nobody's optimal more than Kobel in Champions League.
I was about to tell you, like 4,300, Grigor Kobel, best play on the slate. It's against Real Madrid too.
I didn't say that. Kobel's in my pool. Like he might be optimal. He is a good play.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he's only 4,300. He's priced like 700 more than guys who are just like live to score -6, like 10% of the time. And
you always like a guy playing against Mbappe too. I mean, it can go badly, but it can go right for you too. That team rips shots. They don't have like a big center forward, so all those guys will shoot.
Yeah, if they see an ounce of space, they'll go for the screamer.
Right.
All those guys trying to win the Puskas. So,
but these other keepers, I mean, yeah, the ones below them could win too. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. We saw it last slate. I mean, Lille beat Madrid last slate. Somebody else, another dog on that same slate. So yeah, and it's going to happen again on this one.
Yeah, but, and we've seen the cheap goalkeeper just go nuke on saves. Like the Shakhtar keeper can just get there on saves. Like Arsenal win 3-0 and he gets like 10 saves. That can totally happen. Like the win bonus is worth about 3 saves. So I would like someone who can get the win. But like,
it's fine.
Not that crazy.
No, it's not. You can play these guys. Yeah, you can get 8 or 10 from one of those keepers in the 3K range. I think that's fine. I just probably won't be doing it. Maybe on some lineups if I need to go that far down at keeper. I haven't really messed around with it yet. There might be some lineups where I don't have any Arsenal pieces. Then I'll play the Shakhtar keeper.
Yeah, sounds reasonable. I sometimes wonder on like the extreme like top 5 percentile outcome for the Arsenal attackers. Sometimes to get floor, you just need to keep shooting, right? Like you need the shots, you need the chances created. I mean, what causes that? Sometimes teams are just going to bury you, but sometimes they just like they're knocking on the door and can't score the goal necessarily.
That's what it usually is.
Yeah, and so look, goalkeeper and opposing team is like a negatively correlated thing, but it's also not like the most linear relationship whatsoever, right? Like there's like weird outlier outcomes that aren't even that unimaginative. Like this is the type of thing in Premier League Showdown. I once won the dollar GPP, Ryan, with like a Pickford captain and 5 Manchester City guys. I think Everton lost 2-0. They just were able to withhold City from scoring until the 60th minute. So it might even be better. You might even like want to play 2 Arsenal guys.
No, you're right. You do get those outcomes where that happens. Yeah. Especially on smaller slates, I think it's probably more viable, but even here it's fine. But I mean, like it just happened over the weekend with United and Bruno against Flecken. We used to see it with Liverpool all the time if they ever didn't score.
I think we saw it in the King of the Pitch final, Ryan, last year. Like Saramek, he played, he won a big GPP. And what did he do? He had a bunch of City guys. The only way he could make it work was by playing like the goalkeeper that was against Foden and KDB, the 2 guys he played. So,
yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't want to rule it out. Yeah, it's it just sort of doesn't look right when you do it or when you build it or you feel like it shouldn't get there, but it does plenty often enough.
Yeah, well, you just have to turn into a robot like Saramek. May you rest in peace. He's not in the lobby anymore, filling our contests.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I hope. I mentioned to you guys I saw Saramek in the golf streets last week, so it gave me some hope that like could he somehow be back at some point. I mean, we want these guys to come back for the lobby. So never say never.
Maybe he's commuting from like whatever Pacific island he's living on these days, or maybe he bought the account or the services of you, one of our listeners, who can now enter for him. Who knows? Don't
want to blow up his spot.
Yeah, we don't actually. Like Not at all, actually. I think we could use a couple more max entry players. I thought we lost Moneyball, Ryan. Moneyball is back, and I hear he's been a demon in the interleague streets. So if you've been avoiding that, you've probably been avoiding donating Moneyball, your money. It's interesting how the new soccer lobby is working out without some of the UK folks. Ryan, it's been about 45 minutes. We've talked about a lot. I mean, do you have any like GPP angles that you want to get off your chest? Any ideas? One thing I was trying to think of was how to use positional eligibility on single position eligibility slate only. The one thing that stuck out to me was Kai Havertz. It's the construction that people don't necessarily want to play as much. And so I think that can just be good, especially with a weak midfield position. But I don't know. I played Kai Havertz a lot, and he scores 3 points a lot for me. So how we win with this, Ryan? Ozzy says best game to stack. It's tough to stack. There's too many expensive guys. So maybe Lisbon, actually. Maybe you could play a bunch of Lisbon players and hope that they go off for 6 goals.
Are we talking about stacking one team or a game stack? So that's
whatever you want,
different,
Ryan.
Because we can, like, if we're talking about a game stack, that means we need an underdog in there. I mean, if you want to stack a game, I mean, there's good players in that Juventus Stuttgart game. I mean, and there you have a side that isn't really an underdog, so you're not forcing like, questionable pieces. If you like full stacks, like, man, if Saka doesn't start, Arsenal's whole team is cheap. So they're looking for a little palate cleanser after the weekend. You wouldn't be surprised to see them score 5. And Girona's cheap too. And I think just in general, it's a 7-game slate, and Girona not being as big name as these other teams and players will, they're still going to be popular, but maybe not as much as like would be right. So you could like full stack them. You throw Van de Beek in there. You're obviously playing Dan Juma. You play the center forward and play Jack Sky Gutierrez. Like, you get 4 goals from your Girona. As far as low owned spots, like, I think the whole Aston Villa team will be low owned if you want to look there. Even like at midfield, like, nobody really wants to click Tielemans, but he's in play on this slate. But the forwards will especially be low owned. Morgan Rogers in amazing form, only 5,900, and then Watkins with brace upside that really nobody's going to click on this slate. So yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts. Yeah, I don't know, Jack. Anything else?
I think.
I guess you could like another game that could actually go back and forth is the Madrid game. Actually, that's the game that could go back and forth. If you game stacks, and you probably get lower ownership in that game. Obviously, no one's going to play the Dortmund side, but even Madrid will be. I remember last slate, what stuck out in my head, or it was 2 slates ago now, since Jack was in Italy for the last slate, but the Stuttgart Real Madrid match, when we sort of wrote off the Stuttgart side, and they absolutely just like came out from the jump, creating chances all game. They put up huge floors in that match against Madrid as like huge underdogs, so like, I don't think Madrid's just gonna completely dominate Dortmund. But yeah, like, those price tags make that game tough to stack, huh?
Yeah,
but really, 3, yeah, you kind of can't do it. But
yeah, I'll vote for Lisbon on the road.
Yeah, that too. Is there anyone on
floors?
Can you play someone on Sturm Graz? I mean, you need a goal. Or you just mean stack Sporting and forget about Sturm?
Just play 5.
That's probably the way, right? You don't need to play anybody. Like, 7-game slate, you don't really need to be playing underdogs. You could get a 4K goal maybe from Micah Bareth, but yeah, I don't know. Probably not going to do it.
Might be a little bit wishful thinking. All right, I think we'll wrap it up. Ryan and I will be here tomorrow to break down the Wednesday slate and tilt our faces off about what injustices occurred just hours before. Always must watch television. Thank you all for joining us. So thank you for Ozzy for being a stalwart in the chat. Pan Fried Beats. RotoWire.com/soccer trial. Best way to support the show is to be a member. Like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Join our Discord. Thank you so much for listening. And folks, we will see you all tomorrow. Good luck.
Good luck, everybody.